Beautiful sunrise here at Djuma Game Reserve. Welcome to our sunrise drive as dawn breaks. My name is Marc. Brian on camera with me this morning, and Nikki is in our final control. Nikki will be helping us out throughout the drive, sending me questions and comments and sometimes answers. And we'd like to hear from you as we head out. We're in a really special little spot called Sandy Patch. There used to be a lioness that lived here with her cubs. Sadly, she is no more. In fact, there was a pride lion called the Sandy Patch Pride, but they don't exist anymore. But it is a little open area, and we've had some plovers complaining. They are nesting at the moment. I did see a nest a little while ago with eggs on it, and maybe I can find it again one of these days. Other than that, we're heading ahead of us on a beautiful morning, a little bit overcast. It's going to be breaking up. The sun rising is going to give it a lot of color just underneath this cloud before it disappears, but I think it's going to burn it open. I think we're looking for a really good day. At the moment, it's quite cool, quite mild. Temperature's about 16 degrees Celsius, which is about 61 Fahrenheit, and supposedly about an 80% humidity. I'm not really feeling it, but it is quite damp. I suppose that's most. Let's go for a drive. A safari. Hiya Safari. I'm here because there were leopard tracks coming this way, and unfortunately he seems to have crossed the boundary. So we move on to a different area, see what else we can find in this lovely part of the world. We're in the Greater Kruger National Park. It's a very large wildlife area. It was proclaimed in the late 1800s, about 1898 or something. It was proclaimed. So it's a very old national. I guess there was a bit of hunting in this area a long, long time ago, but for well over a century now, animals have been protected, and so the animals that live here ostensibly are animals that haven't experienced the hunting side of human life, and so they are quite accustomed to the vehicles being a passive entity in their lives as opposed to being a threat. So most of the animals we get to see accept our presence. Emails, questions at WildEarth.tv, and tweet address is #SafariLIVE, and that's how you can get in touch with us on the vehicle. There was a big cricket that was eating, and unfortunately but it is a black bird, not a blackbird called a blackbird. This is a blackbird called something else. Oh, I want this. It's a tricky one. This one. I can give you a clue. It's got a black eye. It would be nice if it flew. Interesting catching an insect so early in the morning. This is the fork-tailed drongo. The other one, well, it's debatable. Hairstyle of the crested barbers. These little crests. Still far away. Hopefully we can find some birds closer to camera. They don't sit still for a minute. And there's a brew too. It's called a brew. It's a type of shrike. A lot of insect eaters all spending time together, what we call a little bird party, mixed bird party. And much like we see giraffe and zebra and wildebeest and impala together and helping each other as far as danger, looking out for danger is concerned, we often have birds that spend time feeding together in these mixed bird parties. And of course, one of the reasons for that is also because more eyes, more ears. After all, there are a lot of predators out here of birds, whether they're snakes or small cats or other birds, eagles and things. They've also got to look out for danger. And even though you'll find a lot of insect eaters together, they have different ways of catching those insects, and sometimes they even, I wouldn't say assist, but sometimes the one bird's feeding habits advantage to another type of bird that feeds in a different way. For example, an insect eater that hops through the trees like the brew. That was a brew we saw. BRU, brew. And it tends to glean insects off leaves and branches. Sometimes something might fly away from the tree, and that's when the flycatcher or the drongo or one of the other birds that catch insects and bee eaters as well, they're likely to catch it if something flies away. So they do complement each other somewhat in that respect. And it's nice sometimes to just stop and see how many different species you can see in a bird party. You might even get seed eaters on the ground who are comfortable being in the grasses, the little blue waxbills and little firefinches. Insect eaters are hopping around the trees and being very vigilant. There are hornbills alarming. Well, not alarming, but they're chattering. I wake up to that sound when there's an owl in my yard. And an impala. Something's alarming. I heard a squirrel earlier. There's an impala alarming where those hornbills are making a noise. Maybe we ought to go back and have a look. I'm going to turn around and show you. There have been some mushrooms that have come out in the elephant dung and some of the other middens. Let's see what the fuss is about. Back this way. Where was that? Just here on the left. I can't see it. There's a collapsed mushroom on the top of that elephant. Bolus. But the other one's on the other side of it. We won't be able to see them. We'll look for more. Nice moist morning to look for them. They're much further in. Not going to be able to get that far in just on a whim. possible that something might be making its way from this area, heading up towards Impala Plains, or even the road from Impala Plains to Sandy Patch. So maybe it's a good idea we do a loop around there. We're currently on Zoe's Road, heading south, and maybe it's a good idea. Let's go do that. I think there isn't really a plan until something turns up, and that sounds like a good idea. Otherwise, it's all open to investigation when we get to a junction to try and decide which way to go. And if we take a drive around this, what we call a block, this area of bush on my right, we might pick up some more clues. Temperature is dropping a bit. Always does just after the sun comes up. It was wildebeest dung, and wildebeest footprint coming from the open area and going. But I just wanted to make sure that we didn't need to divert from our plan for now. Sarah in California. Morning, Sarah. Were they edible, those mushrooms? I don't even know which ones they were. That's why I wanted to stop and get a picture of them so that I could look them up. I couldn't tell you which mushrooms are edible or not, and I do know that there are a number of mushrooms that are poisonous that look like edible mushrooms. And unless you know your mushrooms, especially out here, I wouldn't be tasting any mushrooms, especially me. I'm not much of a mushroom fan in terms of eating them. I'd like to know, because they're part of the environment, they perform such a vital function in the environment. I'm interested in them. Mushroom or fungi are one of the organisms that are responsible for the breakdown of plant matter, of cellulose, the very thing that gives rigidity and structure to plants. No, as much as animals, or whether they're herbivores or omnivores, as much as animals can chew plants, they can't break down that cellulose. And only bacteria and fungi can do that, and it is vital to get everything converted back into trace elements in the soil. I mean, look at this marula tree. This was a marula tree that fell down here. And slowly but surely it's decomposing. And a lot of this decomposition is being done through the process of, from termites and wood borer beetle larvae. There are a number of holes throughout the wood that are evidence of various different species of beetles, some of them very, very large. Some of those tunnels are fat enough to put a finger in, although one should never do that, because you get carpenter bees that also drill holes. And I've known so many children to get their fingers stung because they poke them in a hole in a tree. I suppose the odd adult too. And yes, I've done it myself. No fungus on this marula at the moment, but it is slowly breaking down. Imagine if we could have time-lapse photography here over a decade, and to see not only how it breaks down, but what comes out of the soil and how much richer it is for the breaking down of this dead wood. Fungus is a very important part of that. In fact, you will get different types of fungi that act on different densities of wood or different trees, different plants. And I'll see if I can find some others as we move along on our journey this morning. A lot of people have sent through descriptions of these morel mushrooms, morchella, from North America. Donna, thanks Donna as well for a description that it looks like honeycomb or a brain kind of texture. Now, the idea, of course, is getting back to the basics. I'm glad you sent that in, because that helped me. I could probably page through my book and find something similar, but there is an easier way. And so I'm going to ask for your help, and again, to further our talk about morel mushrooms, and you're teaching me something about a mushroom in North America. If you could tell me the scientific name, or send it to Nikki, and she can spell it out to me. And I'm pretty sure I might find something that is South African, and maybe an equivalent. South African equivalent. Oh, I've got to fix this book. It's binding, the cover's coming off. Morchella esculenta. Thank you very much. From Harlequin Dreams. Morchella microlipode. No, we do not have a Morchella genus in Africa. There was a bird here. That beautiful sky. Morchella, I see. Well, no, we don't have that. And thanks for the descriptions. Thanks for microlipode. No, we do not have a Morchella genus in Africa. That beautiful sky. Morchella, I see. Well, no, we don't have that. And thanks for the description. Menial surface. the underside. So is it a bracket fungus? Does it grow on wood like a bracket? Or is it a ground-dwelling fungus, a ground-dwelling mushroom? See, my page is stained from a shaggy ink cap, which is a mushroom that gets very inky as it starts decomposing. It gets quite messy. Those mushrooms on the elephant's tongue, they look like pretty much your garden variety, what are they called? Button mushrooms. But they might have also been puffballs. Puffballs are poisonous. So I don't really delve into mushroom eating. I know people down in the Cape who, under the pine forest, they find mushrooms. I know somebody who has a mushroom farm. She grows oyster mushrooms and shiitakes. I think the name is Wilmer. Oh, Wilmer. Wilmer in Washington. I think wanting to know if the lilac-breasted roller migrates. No, it doesn't. My lilac-breasted rollers are resident all year round, and now in the dry season they have freedom from their migrating European cousins who tend to dominate. But we have a couple of other resident rollers. We also have the Mozambique roller. It's the only other resident, also known as the purple roller. Purple, not lilac, but it's purple pretty much all over. It's an eagle. And already from this distance I can see what type of eagle it is. If we get a long shot of it, you'll be able to see it yourselves. Those of you who are birders, the upright posture and we might even get closer to it as we go around this open area. It is very far away, but it is such a distinct eagle, there isn't anyone like it. And it hunts from a perch, as opposed to soaring and swooping down on prey from the air. It's a type of eagle that hunts from a perch, which is why we tend to see them quite often, as opposed to a lot of the other eagles that they've got a thermal, they're going to be on the wing. And who can blame them? If I had that kind of freedom, three-dimensional aerial freedom, I'd try to be on the wing as much as possible too. sitting on a tree that looks like it might be down the power line road, and since the bird is there, we might as well take that road. I'm not, or haven't heard any more alarming. I haven't seen any tracks here on this road. Sandy Patch South. Family of magpie shrikes. Such a beautiful sound this time of the day, or any time of the day, but being so still, it's almost like it rings out, almost echoes. Goodbye, shrikes. Bird now calling. Oh, don't fly away. We seem to be having more luck with birds this morning, but it is rather cool and damp. Maybe if the sun warms things up a bit, we might start seeing some things crawling around. There was a black-headed oriole that was in this tree. Getting closer to the eagle. Closest we can get for now without it flying, and I can try and get a bit closer. Slightly different angle, we were side onto it, now it looks like we might be looking at from the back, but still that very upright posture. And if we get a bit closer, we might be able to see the color of its eye, which is quite distinct. It'd be nice if we had better light, sunlight. Joanna in Arizona. Oh, it's going to fly any second now. Morning, Joanna. Arizona. African hawk eagle? No, it is not. They do have a lovely posture in a tree, the African hawk eagles. But that wasn't one. African hawk eagles tend to sit lower down in a tree. They don't sit so prominently out in the open. And they hunt on the wing. But they hunt as a pair, though. Peace of word. Al salam. And thanks for sending in an answer, if it wasn't correct. It is an mostly brown eagle. The only color, the only pale part of this eagle were the underwings. But a fairly broad head. Another clue I can give you is that it had bare legs. It didn't have feathered legs. African hawk eagle has feathered legs because it's what we would call a true eagle, as opposed to this, which has bare legs. And I'll give you another clue. It had a yellow eye. Well, Raisa, I know that Raisa would have gotten that correct, so I'm going to wait for another answer because Raisa was right. Where is Sinead? Today's Monday. Sinead, New Zealand, where are you? Or Brian, maybe Brian and Heather in the UK. Or Lynn in Canada. Or Sharon in Austria. Or Harley. So Joanne coming back with a second answer. You still get it right. Doesn't matter if it's your 10th answer, you still get it right. Joanne in Arizona. That's a brown snake eagle. Thanks, Risa. Thanks, Joanne. Thanks, everyone. Now, next question. Mine or yours? Next question, where do we go from here? We're on Sandy Patch. We're back at Sandy Patch. Done some big loops this morning. Time to do another one. Visit a different area, slightly different vegetation maybe, and see what else is moving about. This here Monday morning. None of us really know it's a Monday because it's pretty much the same as yesterday. Pretty much the same feeling, not the same thing. Oh, what's that? Parrot duiker running away. See something? No. Oh, look, there's a wild cotton. Just see the white puffballs of the wild cotton, the mallow family, same family as the hibiscus. There were some hibiscus flowers out just after the rain. Haven't seen any this morning yet, but we maybe need to get to a different soil type. This is the Mallow family, wild cotton. Not a very big harvest this year. Well, you can, I guess, farm it. Question coming in from Final Control. It doesn't produce as much cotton as the commercial varieties of cotton, and being a wild cotton, it would probably sow quite easily, but I don't think there would be much of a market. And of course, because it's not as dense or densely packed cotton around the seed as commercial cotton, probably not really viable. But it could be harvested, and you could spin it into thread. I've stretched it into thread before. Not used it as thread, but you could. Question coming from Oxford, from Tom. If we get caracal in the area. We do, Tom. I haven't seen caracal here at Djuma, even in the old days, not to my knowledge. I don't recall seeing a caracal at all. I would imagine they would occur here. I haven't even found tracks that I would guess at being caracal. Only track that would be similar, I suppose, would be the likes of a very young leopard, but even then it would probably be a little bit fatter than a caracal. It might also be a little bit too dense in places. They are more of an open grassland type cat, preferring slightly different. Well, this is fairly good caracal habitat here. It's just that it's not a very large area of this kind of habitat. Short grasses, boree thickets. I must find out whether there have been any sightings of caracal. There are also bigger open areas in Buffelshoek north of us where they might occur more frequent, or rather they might be more likely to occur. We're going to have a look. Caracal live pretty much similar to leopards, in that being solitary cats to a large extent, they have territories. Males will have larger territories to encompass females. I don't really know much about caracal. I don't ever get to see caracal. like to stop and have a quick look at Sydney's dam, the big dam on Bushel Hook. I can see the fish eagles down there. Just in case something else is out in this open area. That bird has got a full crop. I noticed that was sitting in the tree above the dam with its wings hanging, just like its mate is doing. And once again, flown to this tree, wings hanging. I think they've been fishing and they're wet. But it looked like it had a full crop when it was flying over this way. It'd be really nice if the mate comes over and flies into this tree. We might be able to just roll down the hill using gravity drive and get a little bit closer. Very beautiful eagles. They are sea eagles, essentially, fishing eagles. Very similar to the sea eagles up in Skye or Norway, or the bald eagle in North America. Sea eagles in Australia, and quite typical of the sea eagles, the white head, white tail. They have been visiting, the same pair has been visiting Gari Dam, Djuma Dam, or Djuma Waterhole. Be interesting when they were last seen on the camera there. We did hear them yesterday morning. We heard them on Djuma. They quite often they sleep on trees around Zoe's Road for the night. I'm going to need to move out of the way of this car. But let's just see if that fish eagle stays in the tree with this vehicle coming by. And maybe we can get a little closer to it. Just gonna stop and say hello. Schön sein, kommen Sie noch gekommen. Papagás. It would have been great if they would call too at the moment, because in this morning air, off he goes. But as it flies, you can see that bulge just under its neck, and that is just full of fish. Maybe that's what we call the crop, sort of pre-digestion in the crop. Well, that was very, very interesting. If the other one's going to follow, we could wait all day for it to follow. It was probably their juvenile as well that was visiting in the beginning of summer when we started our drive, November, December. last year. It was probably their offspring, their juvenile, that was hanging around Gowrie Dam quite a lot. Deborah in Canada was very, very observant. Thanks for the email, Deborah. Saying there was a bird underneath the eagle in the tree. I didn't see it. Wanting to know if it was a parrot. You know, I'm going to have to look at a screen cap of that, Deborah, when I get back from drive this morning. Because I only had eyes for the eagle. There are so much... They're such majestic birds. They're iconic African eagles. Their call is I know a number of people who've got that call on their cell phone as a ringtone. Something like that. Very, very difficult to get that call right. Sorry, did I just blow all your speakers out of their sockets? Well, apart from the flower that's here, that's growing in amongst this wood, I'm looking at something white on that guarri bush in the background. Everything white catches my eye. You can see with that fish eagle flying, you can see how white is such a noticeable color. Very interesting. That is the pupa of a very special wasp. I've shown you this before, but I know there are probably viewers that haven't seen this, so I'm going to go and fetch it if they've emerged. You know how caterpillars, I suppose there are a few moth or butterfly caterpillars that are able to all pupate together. There's some of the moths, and some of the moths mostly, that are communal caterpillars and they'll all pupate together. But generally they're a lot bigger than these. Now I'm going to put them here against the steering wheel where you can see they've all hatched. I can see the holes in pretty much all of them, where the little cap has been opened and the insect has become an adult and it has flown away, a flying adult. Now these are not eggs, these are silk cocoons. Got something, that's the stick, the dark in the middle there. It's just the stick showing through. And these are a wasp species that, as larvae, they were actually eating out the inside of a caterpillar of a moth. the caterpillar would have been about this big. And it probably would have swallowed the eggs of this wasp who would have laid an egg. I mean, if you imagine that these tiny little capsules, which are all of, what's that, just over a millimeter, maybe a millimeter and a half, 2 millimeters at the most, how each one of those little cocoons has produced an adult insect. So the egg of that thing is so tiny that it actually gets swallowed by the caterpillar, and then the larva of the wasp hatches out inside the caterpillar, and they actually start eating it alive. And it still carries on eating, and then the larva of this wasp just eventually affect the caterpillar in such a way, especially when they get to the brain. I know it sounds gruesome, but it is. This is science fiction in real life. This is weird stuff. But anyways, it affects the brain that the caterpillar doesn't spin a cocoon, because if the caterpillar were to spin a cocoon, then these adult wasps would probably get stuck, because it would be a much heavier, much denser type of silk. So it affects the brain so that the caterpillar doesn't spin a cocoon, and then they, as larvae, will hatch out of the back of the dead caterpillar, and then they will, as they hatch out, as larvae, they turn into a pupa and they spin their own cocoons, and it's only about 24 to 36 hours later that they become adults. Very fast metamorphosis, what we call a parasitic or superparasitic wasp. See, there's another type of wasp, a parasitic wasp, that will just inject an egg into the body of a caterpillar or other insects. Sometimes there are parasitic wasps that will just lay an egg on the body of a spider, and that larva will then burrow into and eat that prey alive virtually. This type of little wasp that I've just shown you, being a what we call superparasitic wasp, is most often it's there to eat the larva of the wasp that is already eating the larva of the moth. So it's a parasite within a parasite within a host. Strange stuff. Well, it's not a parasite, it's just a parasitic action. Radio's been fairly quiet, game drive wise. I might have to go south a little bit. Cloud's getting a bit thicker, so much for the sun burning it open. It doesn't seem like that's going to happen in a hurry. Was a cut line for a while. This is our northern boundary. And then we'll start heading south. Oh, I forgot to plug in again. Sorry about that. Wondering why I'm not hearing anything on the radio. Oh, interesting question from California, from Sarah. Morning, Sarah. Do we get crowned eagle here? I mean, crowned eagle. Not really, no. When I say not really, because we don't have the habitat for crowned eagles. Crowned eagles are forest eagles. They are specially adapted to a forest environment with tall trees. In fact, they're specialist eagle. They are primate hunters. They've got incredibly large talons for the size of the eel. And they've also got very, very broad wings. Apart from being one of the biggest eagles, it's one of the biggest wingspans. The depth, the width of their wings are exceptionally broad to give them a lot of lift to be able to take things off of the forest floor or out of trees and lift up through the forest canopy and fly away with them back to the nest. I believe there has been a crowned eagle seen in the Sabi Sand before. I will check with Scott and Brent and Steph to see what they have to say about it. We've all had different experiences here in the Sabi Sand. But I've never seen a crowned eagle here, and I don't really expect to. Here in Djuma, we don't have the tall trees and the kind of habitat that crowned eagles prefer. Out here we get the cousin of the crowned eagle, the martial eagle, which is a more open country, large eagle. Morning stations, any update for Gary? What was that? I wonder. Maybe just a log. Maybe just a log. Just a log. Very convincing log. Yeah. Nearly looked like the back of an elephant. Go down on Booga Road towards Gary Dam. Jackson, come in. My timbers on buffles up. Quite well spread out. I can see at least 4 or 5 of them actually. Although only parts of them easy. They're so well spread out, it is quite dense vegetation. Can't quite see the rest of the group. It looks like a couple of the cows further down. And these are just 2 of the youngsters that have stayed up here. The females have moved lower down. But we can't really see them. Unfortunately, the bushes are rather dense. Very, very young one, this one. Probably only a few months old. Fish eagle is calling, and probably the same fish eagle that came from the dam flew this way. I'm wondering if they haven't got a nest somewhere here on Juma. I think it's something we need to investigate later today. Morning, Shanae. Wanting to know how long it takes for kudu, these little boys, for them to reach full size with their horns. About 6 years for kudu horns to reach full, or for bull to reach full grown. The white tips, Shanae wants to know what the white tips signify, what the white tips are about. Well, it's only really when they're adult one sees the white tips. And I guess it's from sharpening, it's from it's where the keratin thins out, and I suppose it's no, it won't be the bone underneath, but it's, I don't know, it doesn't signify anything to my knowledge, you know. As far as I know, I'm open to any information if there is any study that has been done, or anybody's got any ideas and written about them as to why the nyala and other spiral horned antelope have white tips to their horns, other than, of course, the way the markings on the face and the tail are used in flag signaling and being able to talk to each other, but we'll talk to each other with body language, I mean. But not to my knowledge, there's no real purpose to the white tips of kudu horns or nyala horns. Let's move along. I want to see if we can find some other things. Maybe we'll find some Nyala bulls and we can have a look. It's different for Nyala. Nyala have a complete... Here's a crassula flower, by the way. Another flower for this morning. Nyala have a very different way of doing things. So for Nyala, it's all about display rather than the physical action of fighting. Kudu aren't like that at all. Beautiful. Although they're very, very tiny little yellow flowers, it is quite a pretty end of season flower of the crassula. You can hear some go-away birds shouting. Maybe we need to investigate. Joanne and Heather and Jody. I wonder, Heather maybe Alaska, Jody New Mexico, Joanne Arizona. I'm guessing your places. All saying the woolly-necked stork. That's what it was. It was a woolly-necked stork. Quite a lively bunch this morning, this lot. Feeding. Much like the kudu. Now, feed it. Oh, we're going to start stutting. The little ones. I was hoping they'd have a little bit of energy to do something like that, but maybe if we wait a little bit. Stutting, it's a particular type of pronking type of thing, but it's not quite pronking. It's a particular way that they run, a very stiff-legged bounce, really, and the youngsters often do that. And see those two little boys in the background, their horns are only just coming out. I would imagine it must be quite painful having those little horns come out and having this desire to spar, especially now as we get close to the rutting season, and they must jab each other with those horns. The one on the left looking a little bit bigger than the one on the right, so definitely dominating him already. This is where it starts. This is where the hierarchy amongst these little boys begins to settle. Well, not settle, but begins, really. So that as they start growing, they're sparring with each other, they're learning each other's moves, they're also learning each other's weaknesses. And so that in a year's time, when they're pushed out into the bachelor herds, they can at least cope a little bit. But it'll be a couple of years before they actually have to spar for real. Yes, I want to try. No, I don't. Yes, I do. No, I don't. Maybe you'll find an opponent that's small. He's a small lamb. He's a small, probably quite a late-born lamb. Much smaller than some of these others. Little ram lambs. There we go. There's a bit of a start. Flashing the white tail over the back. Nice one, Brian. Good follow there. Can actually see the big ram coming down. I want to see if there's going to be any rutting behavior out of him. Yeah, it comes, and it looks like he's going to start herding the group that's on our right. Already he's showing a little bit of posture, and a lot of the females are now starting to move to the main bulk of the group. And excuse me, I'm just listening to the radio. Just stuff happening off of our boundaries. But see, very interesting how the appearance of this ram has changed the behavior completely. The whole herd now starting to move. And maybe as the day wears on, they move into the deeper cover. Some alarming going on from grey go-away birds. It sounds like the way they call for an eagle. Because they're calling, I can hear go-away birds calling over a very wide area. But it might be wise for us to go up onto quarantine and have a look. Not as intensive as it's going to be getting in the next couple of weeks, with the rams chasing the females and chasing away other rams. And still one or two impala that have to come out and join the rest of the herd. But with these birds shouting, I want to go and have a look. Calling, they can't possibly be calling for a ground predator, because they all call simultaneously, and it can only be something from the air, aerial predator, that they would be seeing. But he has stopped now. I've just seen, can hear some babblers babbling, and I looked that way, there was a monkey jumping through the tree. Now that would be also a very good giveaway, because monkeys have got such great eyesight, and they would be both looking up and down for predators. Here comes a train of thought, a train of wildebeest. making their way down. They can see the herd of impala. They've heard them running around and no doubt decided to come and spend time around here because safety in numbers. If the impala are making a noise and running around, they're the first ones that are going to get caught by something because they're so preoccupied. And the wildebeest do like these shorter grasses. They've just come off the open area we call quarantine, so it might be an idea to still head up that way and go and see what might be up there. One calf with this group reminds me of the calf we used to have at Thornybush we called Billy.
I remember Billy.
Billy, no mates. Oh, nearly tripped. There, we've had our own mini migration this morning. And there's still one more behind us, actually. The big bull. Trying to convince the girls, please don't go. Morning, Mr. Glue. Keep note of his shoulder stripes. Maybe we'll be able to recognize him just by those lovely stripes on his shoulder.
Very nice.
It's very nice. Anne-Marie asks if impala rams get injured when they're sparring during the rutting season. Anne-Marie, generally not, although it can happen. There are all sorts of, I suppose, mechanisms. It's not the right word, but there are all sorts of things in play that happen. Oh, what was that? That starling just... some bird. Something that was being chased by a starling that came zooming around us. I don't know where it went. Could have been a small raptor. Could account for these birds shouting. If there's a small raptor here that's hunting birds. Impala rams injuring themselves during rutting. Well, that hierarchy that I was talking about, these young rams that for the next year, from now until the next rut, are still going to be allowed to stay with their moms, stay with the family groups, or the breeding herd. And amongst themselves they spar, but by next year when they become just over a year old, or about 18 months old, they will be pushed out into the bachelor herds. And they will have to fall in, basically, with the existing hierarchy. And as they grow, they spar and they get to learn about each other. So that when it comes to the actual rut, there's going to be a difference in strength between the males. And normally, because of this hierarchy that exists, a lower-ranking male will give way to an older male or a higher-ranking male because they already have sorted their differences out, so that a fight doesn't get to be where it can be dangerous or where they get injured. But having said that, in every instance of every animal that goes through the process of males vying for the attention of females, there is always going to be matching testosterone levels. Males that are so equally matched that neither one wants to give way, neither one wants to relent or relinquish control, and so the fights can get to be very dangerous. I've seen a fight where impalas have, in fact we've had it here on the open area a few years ago, two males that were so intent on ousting each other that they got locked up, their horns got locked up, they became very, very tired from all the struggle, and it can actually lead to both of them dying if they can't unlock their horns, which has happened even to kudu in the past. Because kudu can also get quite intense with each other. But generally, because they spend time in bachelor herds, they spar with each other and they get to know each other so that the fights don't get so severe. I had an instance up in Tanzania where the fight got so intense that the horn broke off in the neck of the other male as they were fighting, and how it happened that the horn could break, because it's bone, it's part of the skull, it's solid material, very difficult to break an impala horn, but somehow this happened, and somehow it was embedded in his neck. And of course it fell out eventually, or would have. I didn't ever get to see him again, or if I did, I wouldn't have known it was him. And I'm sure, because it was only in the muscle, I'm sure it probably would have been quite painful for a while. But when I saw him, he was feeding fine, he was carrying on as though there was nothing there. With over 12 inches of impala horn embedded in his neck. Other injuries, of course, do occur. Tree mushrooms. They're very, very delicate. They're probably less than half an inch wide.
Are they tasty?
I don't think so. I'll tell you now whether they're edible or not. Parasols, they're called, or umbrellas. Okay, parasol mushroom. Let's see. There's several that are called parasols. It's not that one, Leucocoprinus or Macrolepiota, the parasol mushroom, not that one. Then it could be the '44 is another one. Not that one. 62 and 56. That one. Not really that one. You see, I'm going to have to find it now. See, there's so many that look similar. It would take me a while. I would have to count things. To do it in the book and to do it now on drive wouldn't really work. I just know that they are parasols. And I would have to go through and see distribution. There are, when it comes to mushrooms, they either grow on the ground in the open in grassland, or they grow under trees, in which case they might only grow under specific trees, or they will grow out of dung of certain animals, or they will grow out of rotting wood from certain trees. So there are different criteria, and sometimes you might find a mushroom that looks similar, and that is because they're different species and because they might have different habitats that they live in. So that wouldn't be the parasol that you might find, say, amongst the grasses. because it's a very specific mushroom that only grows in the midden of a grazing animal. From the grasses that are decomposing. Or that there may be an elephant. Interesting question from Genevieve in New York. The nitrogen in the dung, does it help the mushroom grow? Will they die when the dung dries out? Yes, they do. Mushrooms don't last very long. They are only really able to exist when it is warm and moist. In the dry season, as we go into the dry season, they are not going to be... Well, it depends, actually. I'm sorry to use that again, but for these kind of mushrooms, they won't grow in dry dung. They will grow in dry dung if it gets wet and they get the right conditions. The spores will germinate. It's got to be damp, it's got to be moist, typical mushroom conditions. So it could be old dung, but just being rehydrated by rain is enough to get mushrooms to grow. But they won't grow in the dry season out of dry dung. And having said that, there are mushrooms, there are fungi that grow on trees, bracket and shelf fungus, that grows on dead wood, that continue to grow year after year, and they become quite dormant. Very woody. It's been looking, I guess, I still need to find one. I have been looking, I just need to look harder. I'm gonna just, if you don't mind, folks, I'm just going to pause here when we get to the big road so that I can put my jacket on. It's getting a little bit chilly.
Glad I brought it, actually. Yeah, it's very good.
I normally put on a few layers underneath, and I just didn't do that today. I guess I was trying to be optimistic that the sun would clear up all the cloud and dry up all the rain. See when see spider. Let's move along. I feel warmer, I feel better. How are you doing out there, everybody? Monday morning, Monday afternoon, still Sunday night. Hope you all had a good weekend, ready for the week coming. I'm getting ready for the week coming because I'm going to visit. I'm going home to Timbavati, and then I'm going to visit my parents, who I haven't seen for 3 years. Getting way beyond time to see them. Looking forward to it. There's a small bachelor group of impala with the wildebeest. One ram, two very small rams. Now those little boys, you see how their horns are? They are recently ousted from the family group, from the breeding herd. they are probably going on about 18 months. Anywhere from 14 to 18 months. But seeing the wildebeest has brought back memories of a wildebeest we got to know quite well. And Charlie in Minnesota was asking a question about it. We had a wildebeest whose name was Brian's mom. And we had a wildebeest calf whose name was Brian. And it was one of the calves that was one of the first calves to be witnessed being born on camera. And Brian was the cameraman then at the time. Oh, Brian, you should be telling the story. But Brian's mom sadly was killed by a lion, and I managed to get the skull before the hyena tore it apart or changed its appearance. Now, she was a very particular wildebeest because she had a horn that flopped down the side of her face. She was a very distinct wildebeest, and that's why we could recognize her so easily. And I kept the horn, or rather the whole skull, because I felt it necessary to be able to then study it and see what it was that caused that horn to be that way. I'm going to try to move for a better view here. It's quite a classic shot, that the wildebeest with the two young impala rams, or the wildebeest bull and impala ram together. Okay, oh, you're supposed to look up, Mr. Wildebeest. So Charlie in Minnesota was asking what has happened to the skull, an update on the skull. Charlie, it still needs a bit of treatment. It's still pretty smelly. But maybe we can do something about it this afternoon. Because if I'm going on leave, we'll see. Maybe, if we can. I'll check on it and see if it's not too smelly and if it's not too gory, because it's been drying out for a long time now. I think it was in February, mid-February, around the 19th of February, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, there was a woodpecker pecking above us, but I didn't quite register. I've only registered now. As we drive away and it flies away. I was also thinking that maybe what I ought to do is, when we've looked at the skull and I've shown all of you what the skull looks like, that I would leave it. I would actually take it and we would do it at the place where she died, and then I will leave the skull there. But also I was thinking that maybe the owner of Juma might be interested in it, because it was a very interesting... At first I thought it was a deformity. But I'm now more convinced that instead of a deformity, it is actually, it was a broken horn. And there's some interesting markings on it. And I'd like to share that with you all because so many of the viewers were part of that whole saga of the wildebeest being born in November, and watching these youngsters grow, and the herd out on quarantine every day, almost every day. And then the day when the little Brian went missing. That was a little traumatic because we found lion and we found that it must have been killed by the lion because she was getting frantic. She was running up and down looking for it. She kept running back along the tracks where they had come from because they had been elsewhere and they were coming back to quarantine. In fact, they were probably here at Arathusa and they were in a straight line cutting through from here back to quarantine. And it was quite clear that she had lost her calf, and then it was only a matter of time before we came to the conclusion that one must have been eaten because it was gone. And then only a few weeks later, same pride, a lion came back again one night, and we found them eating a wildebeest on quarantine, and it turned out to be her. And it could well be that she was still preoccupied with looking for her calf, and that may be why she got taken, because she didn't have a calf anymore. She's looking for the calf. Not as vigilant as the cows who still have their calves. Who knows? We don't know, because it was nighttime. And a big surprise when I noticed the skull when they saw the kill. Need to talk on the radio now. Piggery all on its own walks through the grassland, got very well padded and especially adapted feet for killing its prey with its feet. Here it is. Gonna have to get a quick glimpse of it. I don't want it to fly or anything. Quite a stunning bird. Very long legs. It has what look like black leggings on, and it has these quills, these lovely line of, you can see it looks like a black stripe down the back of the head. It looks like, and they are very long feathers. At the moment they folded back, but they look like maybe pencils that would stick out of the secretary's ear. I know it's very sexist. I didn't call it a secretary bird. It's been called a secretary bird forever. It's not. That's because of the, I suppose, the notion that secretaries are mostly women. You can see the impala heading off behind it. They're in no danger, of course. feeds on snakes, tortoises, small tortoises. If they find a nest hatching, they'll eat quite a few of them. I found a lot of baby tortoises at the base of a tree or underneath the trees where secretary birds nest. And that's about the best we're going to get to see of it, and I'm glad we did. Very interesting. They stab. They can kill snakes, even venomous snakes, by slamming them with their feet. They've got these very heavy padded feet. Well, not padded. They're like calloused. They're like clubs, big toes, and they have this manner of stomping on their prey. Of course, being a raptor, being a bird of prey, they have typical raptor-shaped beak, tearing at flesh, tearing at things. That was a surprise, because we've been asked about secretary birds on numerous occasions, and we've always had to say, well, you do get secretary birds here, but we don't have the open grassland for them. But they could occur on some of the open areas that we do have access to, and lo and behold, here is a secretary bird today. It makes it all worthwhile. Just crowned plovers, by the way. Parents, not the parents, but that's whose eggs those were, those lovely cryptically coloured eggs. I'm going to stop briefly now, shortly. There's a beautiful, this is over through the safari now. There's a beautiful deck here. You can imagine something like this being used for, I suppose in the summer months it would be nice to sit up there when the buffalo pan, there's a pan here called buffalo pan, when buffalo pan has got water in, or even just during the day, just to see what comes out over this open area. But in past places where I've been managing camps and things, and we have decks like this, we have people come out for meetings, for small conferences. Anyway, beautiful, very high deck, but there's something here that I noticed for the first time that I would like to talk to you about, because we've been asked about Brian Mom's skull. This is obviously a lion kill. Excuse me. A lot drier and older than Brian's mom's skull. Now, if you have a look at the base of the horn here, you can see that underneath this keratin is actual bone, and I suppose in some ways it looks similar to the antlers of a deer, but it is vastly different because this bone carries on all the way through the horns. What we have here on the horns, they look a little bit gross, but they're actually just the tubes from horn-boring moth. It's the larva of a very special. Sorry, bird's making a noise. Very special moth larva that's only eats the keratin of the horns. And you can actually see on some of these lower ones, you can see where the moths have pupated. This is the pupa have come right out to the end of these tunnels, and they've actually pupated, and the moths have flown away. There's one here. Yeah, no, they're just the empty pupil cases. Now, what we have with Brian's mom is, I think it was her right horn, wasn't it?
Yeah.
What we have with Brian's mom, we're going to see the difference. I want you to take note of this because it's quite important. How the skull looks. I mean, it looks uniform. You can see how, you can imagine this flowing into, or rather the bone of the skull flowing into the inside of the horn, all joined together, and we're going to see a very distinct abnormality on Brian's mum's skull in this region over here. So just keep that in mind, and maybe this afternoon I'll be able to put that out there and show you this afternoon. This was quite a big wildebeest bull. Did I see something? Rest in peace, or don't. Blaze across. What are they in the heavenly skies? Let's see if those warthogs are still around. Yes, looks like they are. All 7 of them have still survived on an open area where there have been so many predators over the last, wild dog have been through here, leopard come through here regularly, including Shadow and her cub. Eagles, they are prime target for things like tawny or martial eagles, even maybe the odd python that they've come across. So miraculous how she's managed to keep, or both these females have managed to keep all 7 piglets healthy and strong. Quite remarkable. Now you can see just below her eyes, sorry Brian, just below her eyes are her pair of warts. The males have got 2 big warts lower down, closer to their tusks. And the warts are there also to help protect the eyes. She's got very, very small warts lower down on her snout where the male's big warts are. And I think these youngsters, I'm sure there are little boys amongst them. In fact, I can see a little boy, 2 little boys. I'm sure they might just be a little bit too young to see the warts on them. Not really. Hasn't got tusks yet, but that one that's just crossed the road, and the second one that crossed the road. Two at the back are little boys. And one at the back on the left. He's even got a scar on his rump already. But they're already showing signs of their warts lower down on the snout, as young as they are. And they are adorable. I don't care what you say. They're not ugly. They are adorable little things. Going down on their wrists to feed like that shows that they're very comfortable. They wouldn't be down on their wrists if there was any hint of a threat or danger. People call them knees, but they're not knees. They're wrists. The outside of the wrist. Radio seems to be a bit crackly, and somebody was asking whether if one of the mothers were to die, would the other one raise the piglets? Under the circumstances, yes, but another unrelated female probably wouldn't raise another female's piglets, only if they were family directly related in the same burrow. It would be a very difficult thing. They're weaned by now. They, more than anything else, they just got to grow. So if anything were to happen to the mother now, the one thing that they would be more vulnerable, because they're more vulnerable to predation, because at the moment she knows more about the dangers out here than any of them do. Picking up on all the signs that we listen out for, signs that she will know much better than we will ever know. You see us every now and then they'll lift their heads and listen. Rena's asking what age, and thanks for the tweet, Rena. Wonder what age these youngsters would start getting their tusks. They would probably, even now, their tusks are growing. It will be a matter of whether we'll be able to see them. Now, unfortunately, they're grazing closer to us. Maybe it is not protruding beyond the lip yet, but the teeth would be there. The tusks would be growing already. First time you see them is probably only by the time they are going on a year, 10 months to a year. They're probably going on 6 months now, these little ones. Born in, or 5 months. 4 to 5 months. They were born in December, early December. Tusks, very much like elephants, are somewhat genetic in terms of how big they are. And they are used as tools. The upper tusks are used for digging, they're used to help with feeding, as well as, of course, with the boars for fighting. But their lower tusks, and if you look at this young female, the younger mom, because she's quite close, as she's feeding, you can actually see that lower tusk as she moves her jaw, and just in the right position where you can actually see how that lower tusk rides on the underneath of the upper tusk. And when they need to use that lower tusk as a weapon, photobombed by the child. Like, don't you dare talk about my mother's mouth like that. They will use those lower tusks to help defend themselves. Oh, I'm seeing a lot of flashes of white tails way down the bottom end of the airstrip. I think it's just predator drill. Impalas running around like they were at Gowrie Dam. Cool temperatures, they have a bit of energy to burn. Well, it's been a lovely morning. We've had some really nice bird sightings, and I think, of course, the highlight of all is seeing that secretary bird. It's a very unusual bird to see. I don't know if it's almost like we saw ostriches a few years ago, and very unusual, and we did see them. But to have a secretary bird here is very special. We might be lucky enough to see that again one of these days. But for now, however, that's probably about the highlight for me. Had a lovely morning. I mean, birds have been great. The warthog, it was so great to see the one that we didn't see so well, and thinking of these and coming to see these warthog. As far as the other bigger animals are concerned, we're going to hopefully look for those this afternoon. I'm hoping that also, I'll see if we can bring out Brian's mom's skull, the wildebeest skull, and we can chat about that as well. So I should be out this afternoon, and I should be seeing you all at about 3 o'clock Central African time. Thanks to Brian on camera, and thanks to Nikki back in final control. My name is Marc, and we're going to sit and watch this family of warthogs come by.
Plucking the grass. Vest. You can hear them plucking the grass.